In this tutorial, I'm going to be going through different types of lighting. So this is following directly from my BSP tutorial. It's not to say that it's linked up in any way. It's just I'm going to be using this to showcase how some of the lighting works. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through each of the five main sets of lighting that we've got here. So again, if you've not got this window open, click on the box with the plus and then click on the place actors panel, and this will bring up this where you can start to go through all of this kind of thing, but we want the third from the left, lights. So I'm going to go through in order how these work. So directional light, so if you've currently got this as unlit, put it into lit, and then we can start to see the lighting in the world. So directional light effectively simulates the sun. So it's from one direction, so this arrow is showing where the light is pointing to. So imagine a sun being up in the air over there. So it's pouring light all in one direction. So we can see it's not lighting up the area inside of here. That's using a skylight, so I'll get to that once we get to it. But it's pouring light in. So what we can do, if this is something like a sun, you might want to have it slightly orange. So something like that, and we've got something like a sun. So this is really good for open areas, open world games. So this would pour it on your entire map. You wouldn't need to worry about putting loads of these around your map. Usually in games, you can afford for one or two lights to be movable. So this will make it so that the shadows are dynamic and they're doing in runtime. So usually the directional light is something that is movable or stationary. You'd never really have it as static, just because you want dynamic shadows with this, and because it's just one light, it's okay to do. So we've got directional light there. So I'm going to delete that just for the sake of showing you what a point light is. So a point light, as you can see with this sphere, from the middle point just pushes light in all directions in a sphere. So this might be good for having something like a light bulb, but there's another one, rectangle light, that does this a little bit better. So this could be done for something like a torch in a game. So like a medieval torch, you can put this as an orange light and then have a fire particle on there, and it might look quite nicely. Or you can have it where it's just various different lights around your level. This is the most basic version, so this version you probably want as static at most. But then you can start putting that around your world, and it starts to light up the scene. So now it's no longer pitch black, now you've got some point lights. So I just put that back to unlit so I can position this. Now we've got a spotlight. So this is, if you're familiar with spotlights in real world, this should be fairly straightforward. But what it does, it from one point, it puts it into a cone. So it points it like a flashlight, like a spotlight on theatre and things like that. So we can see there, it's starting to push light in one direction. But we can see it doesn't have it anywhere outside of the cone. It doesn't have light. So this is good for games where you have a flashlight, because this uses the spotlight type of thing. But what we can do, we can change these settings to have the corners more narrow. We can have a inner cone, so we can have it where there's like a brighter version and then a dimmer version and all that kind of thing. And then we can obviously change the colour again. So that's what a spotlight does. So now we've got a rectangle light. This is the one that I prefer for indoor lighting, just because it does what it shows here. So it points it, it sort of points it downwards. So it kind of does similar to what a point light does, but it does it in like a semicircle. So rather than having the light like being really bright on the ceiling, so I'll show you what it looks like. So this would be something like a normal light. but you can see it's really bright on this ceiling. This can remove detail on the texture and everything like that on the ceiling to get it where it lights up the ground how you want it. So I prefer rectangle lights for this, just because you usually have things like lampshades and things like that, which would prevent it from lighting up the ceiling anyway. So I prefer this, and you can do things like doing a barn door angle, which is what it says, so it limits the amount. So this might be like a fluorescent light where it does that, and you can do all these settings. Yeah, but I prefer rectangle light for things like ceiling lights. So then the last one is skylight. So this one usually goes in conjunction with a directional light, but I'm going to show you what a skylight looks like without a directional light. So this is a little bit different in that it doesn't automatically light up the scene. So what we need to do, we need to put a cube map into it. So you can do a captured scene, but the easiest way to do it is to change from captured scene to specified cube map. Now if you click this, you can click this and then it'll add some colour into it, but I like to have a lot more control. So what I do the drop down for the cube map, click on this cog, and then do show engine content. So this then gives us a lot more to work with, and I usually do light grey texture cube. So what this does then is it adds it as a white light rather than having that little bit of blue tint that you might have seen, and then we get a lot more control of the colour that we have. So what I like to do is I like to have that as a like a blue colour, and then I put the intensity down to like something like 0.3, and then I put a directional light in, and then I put that as a orange. And then what we have is we have sunlight and then some nice natural looking shadow. So it's not pitch black, it's nice blue reflecting from the atmosphere skylight. So when I put a directional light in, I usually pair it with a skylight, which again also floods the entire scene, so you don't need to worry about having loads of these in your scene. But if you have both of these, then you can have a nice warm light and then a nice cool light as the shadow. Because if I turn that off, obviously this becomes pitch black, which isn't very realistic. You have this. So if you think that this is too bright, you can put that down, but it still has, you can still see inside this scene. Then when you go out, got nice light. So those are the 5 core lights and what their function is within Engine.